This hadith is a warning against simply spreading information without verifying it. And this is a principle we see in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And how easy has it become in the times that we're living in today for information to spread without it being verified? How many times people will make tweets, posts, will spread things on WhatsApp, people will fabricate videos, will cut videos out and make a whole story about a person, and it will be spread around and people will believe it. There's so many times I've personally seen where a 1 minute clip or a 2 minute clip will be spread around, and you will be convinced this person is a'udhu billah, Allahu musta'an, look at what they're saying. But when you actually search and actually do your homework and find out what the real story is, and you see the full video, you'll find out that the whole thing is fabricated. They might have cut clips from a different place, from different parts, and put it together, and they just edited the whole thing, and the person was actually saying something that is correct, but because people wanted to shame them or whatever it might be, and fabricate and make a lie about them, they completely fabricate a video about them, and everybody's spreading it. People don't even verify. They get a video message on their phone, they watch it, a'udhu billah, they spread it to a group they're in, 100 people. The other one spreads it again. No verification, nothing. That's not the way the Muslim is supposed to be, right? Especially when it comes to talking about people now, right? And it's dealing with people's honor and people's status and people's reputation. You can't simply just spread the rumor and keep it going. That's what society pushes, right? We live in this tabloid society where it's all about exposing people and, did you hear what happened to so and so? Did you hear what happened to this individual, this athlete, this celebrity, this politician, this person in the community? And people are just spreading it without no verification, right? That happens online. That happens in person. Somebody comes to you and they tell you something in confidence, in private, between you and them, and then the person goes to another person and says, "Ya akhi, I have something to tell you, but it's a secret thing. Keep it between us." You've already told the person. How do you know this person is going to hold on to it? You couldn't even hold on to it yourself. You couldn't even keep this.
This is the sacrifice, ya ikhwan, we need to inspire our young children. As the jails are filling up with Muslims because our youth aren't inspired with the dawah that's coming out of the masjids. And they're more inspired by the hip-hop artists and the basketball players and the gangster movies people. That's the reality, ya ikhwan. Our youth are inspired not by us, but by somebody else because our dawah is weak, ya ikhwan. If that's not the case, ya ikhwan, go look in the jail and see the condition of the Muslim.
Salaam Alaikum. Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam wa rasulullah wa ba'd. In the name of Allah, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon his last and final messenger. As to what follows, family, friends, foes, haters, and hateettes, welcome back to the Feachaz. I greet you all in peace and love with no hatred in my heart. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So before we begin, please like, please subscribe, and please share. As you know, we got a lot of haters up in here, and tonight we have probably like a topic that is something that is never, I don't think anybody has actually covered this topic on Black Muslim YouTube, okay, at all, right? And it is so important to cover this topic, especially for Black boys and Black men, that I decided, let me cover this topic. And I think because a lot of the literature on this particular topic are not written by Muslims, so I decided to put something together for y'all, right? Because this particular topic about un-effing yourself, Black men, and how to un-eff yourself. We have a situation of being beaten down, not just physically, not just socially, but mentally, from our circumstances, that it has become very apparent that our only help will come from Allah first, of course, and then ourselves. We have to look to ourselves. Nobody else is coming to save us, right? You might recall I mentioned this book several times, and there are several gems in this particular book. So before we start, I just want to read something that Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, this is Dr. Frances Cress Welsing book, the ISIS Papers, okay? And she wrote a series of essays when she discovered that the majority, if not all, the problems stemming from Black society are rooted in systemic or systematic racism somehow or some way. So I want to first define how she defines racism, right? Or white supremacy. She does not make a distinction between white supremacy or racism. She said it's the same thing. There was no such thing as racism before the white supremacists made it a thing. And then they try to regulate racism to a bunch of arbitrary feelings that you have towards darker skinned people or lighter skinned people. So now anybody who has some bad feelings about somebody is a racist. And she's saying, no, that's not racism. So how does she describe racism? She says, as a Black behavioral scientist and practicing general and child psychiatrist, okay, my current functional definition of racism, white supremacy, is as follows. The local and global power system structured and maintained by persons who classify themselves as white, whether consciously or subconsciously, determined. This system consists of patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thought, speech, action, and emotional response as conducted simultaneously in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The ultimate purpose of this system is to prevent white genetic annihilation on Earth, a planet in which the overwhelming majority of the people classified as non-white, that's black, brown, red, and yellow, by white-skinned people. All the non-white people are genetically dominant in terms of skin coloration compared to the genetically recessive white-skinned people. So I wanted to make that definition clear first about racism, white supremacy, because we're going to talk about that on this talk. Once you understand that racism, white supremacy is a system and not some arbitrary feeling or disdain that you have against some people. Who cares about a feeling anyways? If somebody don't like you, who cares? It's the power to control you physically, control your movements physically, economically, and psychologically. This is where the power in racism is, right? So I want to say wa alaikum salam to Brother Josh and family as well. Hayakum Allah. Now, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to Sister Tika. Now let's get down to business, okay? Black psychologists have been discussing the trauma that Black boys face for decades. And we can say that Dr. Frances Cress Welsing was among the first to discuss this. They have highlighted the ways in which systemic racism and discrimination can lead to negative mental health outcomes for Black boys and men. Prominent Black psychologists, and y'all can look this sister up. Her name is Dr. Joy DeGray. Dr. Joy DeGray. And maybe one of you can put her name in the chat. Dr. Joy DeGray. She developed the concept of post-traumatic slave syndrome. That's PTSS, which describes the intergenerational trauma that Black people have experienced as a result of slavery and ongoing discrimination. She argues that trauma is passed down through generations and that it is the root cause, it is the root cause of many problems faced by the Black communities. And this includes poverty, crime, and poor educational outcomes. So you have post-traumatic slave syndrome. I remember when this psychologist, she came out with it. And initially, much like Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she was laughed at. But nobody's laughing anymore, okay? And we'll get to that in a minute. Another Black psychologist, right? Dr. Alvin Poussaint, right? And maybe somebody could put his name in the chat as well. Dr. Alvin Poussaint, okay, has written extensively about the psychological effects of racism on Black children. He argues that the exposure to racism can lead to feelings of anger, anxiety, and depression. It can negatively impact a child's self-esteem and mental health. Dr. Poussaint also argues that racism can lead to a sense of hopelessness and powerlessness that can prevent Black boys from achieving their full potential. And when we're talking about racism here, what are we talking about? White supremacy. We're talking about a global system of domination. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Josh, Dr. Alvin Poussaint. Okay. Another doctor, Black psychologist, her name is Dr. Beverly Tatum. She's discussed the ways in racism and discrimination can lead to stress trauma for Black boys and how it can affect their academia and their social development. She emphasizes the role of teachers in schools and communities in helping Black boys overcome these negative effects. Okay? So the literature is out there. All these people are scientists. Okay? They're scientists. And all of them have connected racism and white supremacy directly to the psychological ills that Black men face in their day-to-day lives. And as you're growing up, you don't know you think everything's going normal, right? But you don't realize that you have been traumatized. Most people don't realize they've been traumatized. And Black trauma has always been neglected. Okay, they have also highlighted the importance of addressing trauma faced by Black boys and men through interventions such as therapy, counseling, and support groups. They have also emphasized the importance of creating safe and supportive environments where Black boys can learn, grow, and thrive. We're going to come back to that, inshallah. So after the Vietnam War, okay, certain organizations were set up to help veterans, okay? The Vietnam Era Veterans of Readjustment Assistance Act, that's VEVRA of 1974, prohibited discrimination against veterans in hiring and required federal contractors to take affirmative action to employ and advance veterans. Okay. Veterans Educational Assistance Act of 1984, the Montgomery GI Bill, right? Very famous bill in 1984, provided educational assistance for veterans who served on active duty after June 30th, 1985. Okay. So we have the government recognizing the trauma that Vietnam veterans face, not to mention that after the Iraq War, the Veterans Affairs Mental Health Program, which provides a range of mental health services and treatments for veterans, including counseling, therapy, and medication management. Counseling, therapy, and medication management. This is for Iraq vets. Veterans Affairs Readjustment Counseling Program, which provides counseling and support through the Veterans Affairs vet centers. Okay. The Veterans Affairs PTSD Program, which provides treatment and support for veterans who have experienced trauma as a result of their military service, and Veterans Affairs Substance Abuse Program, which provides treatment and support for veterans who have substance abuse issues. Why did I mention this about the veterans and the Iraq War veterans and the Vietnam War veterans and whatnot? Why? The point is that these governments recognize the importance of these veterans getting the help that they need from the overseas trauma that they were paid not only to witness, but to inflict. But these same governments, in whom black bodies are the engine in which built these countries through much violence and terrorism, they have not spent not even one single red cent on counseling, okay, therapy, and medication management. As a matter of fact, our drug addicts are criminalized. Their drug addicts are seen as mental health issues. Y'all hearing me? So they are very aware of what's happening and what's going on and how to fix these issues, but they're not willing to do it for you. So we need to see that work of counseling, therapy, as these psychologists, what did they mention over here? Finding safe and supportive environments where black boys can learn, grow, and thrive. This has to come from us, the grassroots. It has to come from us. It has to come from us. Nobody else is going to do it. There is a growing body of research that suggests that trauma caused by the historical events of slavery and ongoing racism have lasting impact on the genetic makeup of individuals and communities. This is known as transgenerational trauma or epigenetic trauma. We touched up on this briefly before. How trauma can be passed down through generations on a genetic level. One study published in the Journal of Social Science and Medicine in 2016, okay, found that African Americans with ancestors who were enslaved have a higher risk of hypertension, a condition that can lead up to heart disease and stroke, as we all know. The researchers suggest that the trauma of enslaved Americans, pardon me, 1 second, enslaved individuals, which were then passed down to their descendants, okay? And this is from the article, pardon me, again, sorry, the impact of transgenerational trauma and on hypertension among African Americans. Okay, a preliminary study. Another study published by the American Journal, okay, of Public Health in 2018 found that African American men who reported experiencing racial discrimination had a higher risk of developing prostate cancer. The researchers suggest that the stress caused by discrimination may have led to changes in the genetic makeup of these men, which increased their risk of developing cancer. And this is in the article, The Racial Discrimination and Prostate Cancer in African American Men, in the American Journal of Public Health. Okay? And a study of the Journal and Trauma Dissociation in 2018 found that an African American woman who reported experiencing racial trauma had increased levels of inflammation markers in their blood. And another study came about this recently. This very same thing. The researchers suggest that the stress caused by racial trauma may have led to change in the genetic makeup of these women, which increased their risk of chronic health conditions such as heart disease and diabetes. Now we know Oh, by the way, the reference for this one is Epigenetic Markers on Social Stress and African American Experience. Okay, and that's the American Journal of Human Biology. So we know that these traumas, these are the physical traumas that are passed down. But what we know as Black folk, there's a heck of a lot of psychological trauma that's been passed down for generations. We know that because we're living it. And then we see how other people are living, and we're like, what's going on here? What is going on here? We see the difference in dealing with each other and in dealing with other people groups. We understand that there's a difference. So anyways, taking control of your lives needs to be at the forefront of our minds as individuals and as a collective, particularly for Black men. Our enemies will never have mercy on us, and with systemic racism and entire systems meant to lock us out of participating in a functional manner in society, we know very well that there's no help coming from these people, okay? And Allah knows very well what we go through on a daily basis. And those people who pretend to be our brothers and sisters, that we're imagining it. Those of you who are watching right now, how many of y'all have given your kids the talk? How many of y'all have heard the talk from your parents? I've heard the talk many a times, not just from my parents, but from my grandparents as well, or my grandmother, who is not Black, by the way. My grandmother is not Black, by the way. She is an indigenous native. She's a native, First Nations. I have personally been told by both my parents that you are a Black boy. You have to work twice as hard to get half as much. You can't be doing what your white friends are doing out in the streets. I've heard all of that. I have personally been suspended, okay, from school for something I didn't do and some other people group was doing, but I just happened to be there. I happened to be at that spot and I got suspended. I wasn't even knowing what these people was doing. I was just in the vicinity. So when these bones and biscuits are telling you that you imagine stuff, and you're not imagining stuff. Because they never had to give their kids the talk. They never had to do that. They never had to do that. My parents told me, you can go to jail for what your friends do. How many of y'all heard stuff like this? Okay? How many of y'all heard these things? And how many of y'all witnessed these things? Black boys getting arrested for existing. Just existing. Black boys getting suspended and expelled for things white kids would never get suspended or expelled for. Y'all hearing me? So, Allah knows what we go through. And we don't have to explain ourselves to anybody. We really don't. This explaining ourselves to other people, we don't have to do that. We need to work on ourselves. You have the power to change your own circumstances, but it starts with changing the way that you think. It starts with recognizing that your thoughts and feelings are not facts. That's where it starts. They are not the truth. They are just thoughts and feelings. And you have the power to challenge them and question them and change them. This is where Islam comes in. Do you know that the circumstances we are in, much of it is mentioned directly in the Quran itself? Much of it. Where Allah mentions that you were warring tribes, fighting with each other, living in Jahiliyyah, all this kind of stuff. That's us. Okay. Look at the story of Musa and Pharaoh. That's us. A lot of it is like directly related to us. So even though our 400 plus years dealing with white and Arab supremacy, mind you, isn't our fault. We are responsible for our own actions and how we deal with our circumstances. You have the power to start taking ownership of how you react to things. You have the power to learn from the past and start focusing on the present, the right here and now. We have 400 years of past, 400 plus years of past that we should have already learned from. You get me? So the question is, once we understand this, we understand nobody's coming to help us. Like nobody. Nobody cares even. Those people who say they care, they really don't. The question remains, what are we really going to do about it? So you have the power to set your goals and to take actions towards them. You have the power to make things happen instead of just dreaming about them. You have the power to change what you see in the Black community. And many of us run around saying, and we know this very well as Black men, and then we pass it down to our sons, okay? We run around saying that we can't do this and we can't do this, and we can't. This is just repeating the statements of our 400-year-old enemy, the spawn of Satan, who has not only invaded our lands and our bodies, but also our minds. They've invaded our minds. We're the only ones talking about what we can't do, okay? Mind you, we're Muslim. Most of us anyways, all right? We're Muslim. There's no can't in Islam. In Islam, is anything is possible with Allah. That's what it is. Anything is possible with Allah. Walaikum salam, what? When you're changing, when you're going through change, if you think about change of the world, it's never easy. It's never an easy thing, right? It takes hard work. It takes perseverance. But too long, we've been afraid of dealing with the reality of our situation because of the psychological warfare that has been inflicted upon us through state-sanctioned violence and a foreign policy which ensures our economic dependence on wicked people. Y'all understand that? That just means not only do we have a lot of work to do, because we are fighting not just our enemy, but Allah's enemy himself. And Allah, of course, Allah makes powerful enemies. Go read the Quran. Go read about the enemies of Allah in the Quran. Go read about Ad and Thamud. Read about Qawm and Lut. Read about Fir'aun. Were these weak people? These were powerful, powerful, powerful enemies of Allah. Powerful enemies. All it means is that the path to victory is paved with big blessings. That's all that means. Okay? If you have the testicular fortitude to discipline your mind, your time, and your mouth, then with Allah's help, success is the only path. We have, as a black people, we have a proven resume, tried and true, of strength and ability and talent. And this, again, is nothing short of a miracle from Allah himself. And all we've been through and all that we continue to go through, this is just a miracle. It's a miracle that we're still here and we're still becoming Muslim. And we're still holding on to Islam. The first steps to this change is in healing our minds. And how much counseling and trauma intervention that we need. How much? All of us need it, including myself. Okay? We all need it. We know very well we all need it. We know very well that we all need it. Okay? But what we understand is that our enemy is not going to give us this counseling or these trauma counselors or these psychiatrists or psychologists, right? We have to support them in our own community as much as possible. But since we understand that the people who put our killers on their dollar bills have not the will nor the moral compass to help us, we must step up and help ourselves. We must step up and help ourselves. And that only comes with trusting in Allah. Which brings me to the title of this live, okay? I recently listened to this audiobook, and I wanted to share with y'all some of the benefits I derived from this audiobook, okay? The book is called Un-F Yourself, Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life. It's a self-help book written by a person named Gary John Bishop, okay? So it reads like a typical like motivational book, but there are some points that stuck out when I was listening to this, and I was thinking, you know, this right here is definitely applicable for us, and this right here is definitely applicable for us, especially for Black boys, because Black boys walk around defeated and aspiring to be rappers and basketball players and football players and actors and these type of things, because they don't think they can achieve anything else. Right? So I wanted to share some benefits with you. So anyways, from the book, the author says, don't believe everything that you think. Do not believe everything that you think. Our thoughts can be deceiving. We need to be aware of our thoughts and not just take them at face value. We have to question our own thoughts. The thoughts that we have are not necessarily true. They're just thoughts, and we have the power to change them. Why is this important for Black boys? And Black men in general. Because we know very well that Black men have this issue of the thought in their head doesn't filter. It just goes straight to their mouth and out their mouth. And many arguments start in the Black community because of this behavior, this one behavior. Many arguments. You don't believe me? Go on Black Facebook. Go on Black Twitter. And compare that with any other community. And this is something that carries on even in the streets. Where there is no filter between thought process and mouth and action. None. Okay? Just because you think something doesn't necessarily mean it's true. In Arabic, there's a word for it. It's called wiswas. You know, the whisper who comes and whispers in your ears. The other point he brings up, he says, you are not your thoughts. We are more than just our thoughts and our feelings. We are a human and being capable of growth and change. And we should focus on being in the present rather than being trapped in our thoughts. This is another very crucial thing that Black men and Black boys have to understand. Because the way that we think about ourselves is that we are absolutely insignificant and we don't belong. Because that's all we've been told our entire lives, right? Not just from the white supremacist, but even from our own family members, from our friends. So we internalize these negative thoughts. And we give up before we even attempt something. We are so desensitized to negativity that we see negativity as reality. And we have to understand that just because we have those negative thoughts or somebody else has implanted those negative thoughts in our minds, we are not that. We only become that when we act upon that or we act like that thing. Which brings me to the third point, which is act as if. You should act as if we already know what we want, because actions are what bring results, not just thinking or talking about it. We talk too much. We know very well we talk too much. Am I lying? Am I lying? Do we talk too much? We are a group of talkers when the action is more important than the talk. And if you have to seclude yourself from the people, especially your devices, in order to beat on more action, then you should do that. You should 100% do that. But we know very well how many times have we heard Black people need to do this, Black people need to do that, Black people need to do this, Black people. We heard this so many times, but who's taking up the reins in order to bring this into the Black community? just pass the buck for responsibility to somebody else, right? You need to do the action. Nobody else is going to do the action for you. We're very focused on watching how other people act and succeed and win. Instead of us participating in that. Which brings me to this next point, and I really liked this point here, and that is, this one right here really stuck with me. It is, there is no try. This right here really, really, really stuck with me. There is no try. What does he mean by there is no try? We should stop saying I'll try and start saying I will, because trying implies that we might succeed, but saying that we will, we are already setting the mindset of success. We as Black men don't have this habit of putting our foot down and making sure that we 100% commit to an action and complete it wholeheartedly. Do you ever wonder why marijuana is pushed on Black people with such authority? You ever wonder why? Why in the Black community, even our music is glorifying the smoking of marijuana, and entire songs and ballads and hits. Many of people made a lot of money in the Black community about smoking marijuana. So much so that we don't even see it as a big thing. It's because marijuana is a chemical castrator of motivation. You get me? So people who generally smoke a lot of marijuana, what do they really do? How many of y'all seen Friday? You remember Friday? What do those guys really do? But somebody who is focused and motivated and disciplined, a part of that focus and motivation and discipline is making sure that you act appropriately and you honor that which you put in your body as well. So your outcomes can be successful. So imagine now, you know you have to do something, but every single time you have to do something, you got to smoke weed or something. How much would you really accomplish? And then you're in an environment where everybody around you is like this. Everybody around you is like this. How much would you really accomplish? And you're always trying something. Always trying something, but never completing anything. So that one really stuck with me. And this one right here. This one right here. probably one of the most potent killers of civil discourse in the Black community for both men and women, and that is stop being right. Stop being right. Stop trying to be right all of the time. And start working on solutions and progress. Being right is not as important as finding solutions and working towards progress. Every single, especially in the Black community, we always have to prove that we're right all the time. All the time. We can't just concede. We can't try to find solutions to the problems. No, we have to prove. And we will write entire essays on Facebook and everything, man, on people's comment section, everything. Look at my comment section. Look at some of the comments on my videos. People writing their thesis, bro. They're writing their thesis because they need to be right. They need to be right. And that's just not me. I don't have to be right. I'm very willing to walk away from an argument or not even involve myself. And most of you who know me, you know this already. I won't even participate in an argument if it'll save my peace of mind and my time. All this energy you're putting into argumentation, why didn't you pick up a book and read? Like, why didn't you do that? That would be much more useful for you and the community. But you out there fighting with people on Facebook and stuff. And the next one is do it now. Procrastination is the enemy of progress. We should take action now, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. Black men and Black boys, we prioritize entertainment and social media over action. And this is nothing new. We have been the number one consumers of television since television came out. We don't have money for so many things, but you better believe we'll have a television in the house. You better believe we'll have a television in the house. And now that has just transitioned to computers, laptops, and cell phones, which has made the situation many times worse. So because we are busying ourselves and wasting time, we have developed mastery in procrastination. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Naeem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Fatima.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair for this topic. Wallahi, it's very close to my heart. Being a mother of two young boys, plus sort of dealing with the lost voice generation of the 90s and the 2000s. And everything that you're saying, subhanAllah, you hit the nail on the head. You know, I think there's a lot of, yeah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless you and increase you. I mean, because I think like these are really important conversations that we need to be having and really thinking about what are those solutions, you know? And it's hard because it's, you know, the older you get, like I'm close to 40 now, and the older that I get, the more I like, subhanAllah, I'm like, it fortifies my iman in a sense of every single thing that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to us in the Quran is haqq. Like, just follow the sunnah. Your life will be
Yeah.
in a good place. But
Yeah.
right, but subhanallah, it's like we don't have the knowledge, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the barrier. And then I think the insidious thing is that in order to get access to Islam, you need Arabic, right?
Yes.
And slowly and surely, like, Arabic is being lost. Like, it's you know, there's a lot of people that are putting, like, you know, trying to do Medina books and Al Arabiya Bain Yadayk and all these kind of things, but it takes patience. And I think we're all so consumed with everything that's going on that it's quite hard. But nevertheless, I digress. I think knowledge is extremely important, but also, like, thinking about how can we put in systems to help our boys that are coming up, but also to support those that are you know, that are already out there in their 20s, 30s, even, you know, some 40-year-olds need some help in trying to figure out who they are. And although
Yeah.
I do not agree with the red pill for many, I really think there's a significant racism in red pill. And because I feel like it's like, when you look at some of these shows, like, they're very much capitalizing on the Black struggle, and like, they're just making fun. You know what I mean? Like, they're I feel like they're, you know, they're making entertainment based on, like, some deep-seated issues that are occurring within the Black community, and then just creating a lot of conflict. But nevertheless, but one of the key messages I appreciate is just working really hard, right? And I think I put a comment, it's you're a Muslim, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do anything. So if we can teach our boys and give them that hope, you know, like, just give them the hope that it's possible, to accomplish what you want. But also thinking about, and this is where I'd love to get your thoughts on, is it possible to think about, okay, do we need to sort of leave, you know, North America just to give our boys an opportunity to see what a successful, like, Black community looks like in Africa or in other areas? Like, is that something that we need to do just to open up all of our eyes, I think, to the opportunities that are out there? And is hijrah something that needs to be a part of our sort of plan to cultivate a generation of, you know, successful Black men in the Muslim community? Like, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, that's really a very, very big question, and it has a lot of moving parts. And I'm really, like, hesitant in trying to give like an answer about that, because it's so big, right? And it's a very important question to answer. But what I will say is this: is that right now Ghana is offering Black people land. So is Gambia. Gambia is offering Black people land. I don't think that Black people should miss that opportunity to get land and citizenship in Africa if they can get it. However, there are, like, nuances with that, because what happens is that Western Black people will end up going to Africa with Western values and Western type, and nobody on earth wants that. Okay? Nobody. They want to see it on TV. You get me? They want to see it on TV, but they want to see it on you know, in Love and Hip Hop and stuff. But they don't want to witness it in their faces. This was already done with this type of Pan-Africanism at the time of Marcus Garvey, and even before that, where Black folk from America were repatriated to Liberia. And it caused a massive issue with the American Blacks and the African Blacks, because the American blacks came with American, wealth, and they run around the place like they own the country. And
Yes.
Western black people will do that. They will actually do that. There's a big problem right now in Brazil.
Yes, I heard
because
about that.
an American, you heard about that one, right? Because an
I did, yes.
Black American, a Black American who is a part of the passport bros, overstepped his bounds with the culture, right? In Brazil, right? He didn't know, right? But this is what Westerners do. They kind of go around the earth like they own the earth, right? They own everything, right? They're very entitled. Very, very entitled. But if you go with an attitude of you're trying to build this country that you're going to, you're not trying to mooch off the people and live off of your American or your Western citizenship, that's a different story. That's a totally different story. However, what I think, in my personal opinion, yes, I do believe that if you have the opportunity as a Black person, you can get land in Africa, get land in Africa. Do that, right? If you can do it, right? And what you should be doing here, though, is working with each other. We're trying to change the culture here on the Feachaz. We're trying to change the mindsets of Black Muslims on the Feachaz here. We're trying to show Black Muslims that, yes, you do actually have value. So walk and talk and believe that you have value. You have value. You are the value. And just because nobody else values you, there is a reason why we are going through it. And everybody else, gets to step on our backs and our necks to get ahead. I firmly believe that Allah is prepping us for something. However, we are responsible for how we act. You get me? Like you were saying that as you get older, you start seeing the value in the Quran and the Sunnah. I'm the same way. Because everything is laid out. The keys to success is laid out in a literal manner. There's nothing that is not covered in the Quran and Sunnah that cannot help us as Black people. Our stories are in the Quran and the Sunnah, both. Okay, both, right? So we have the tools to get out. We have the tools to get out. Are we willing to humble ourselves, though? That's the question. That is the question. Are we willing to humble ourselves? And that's why I wanted to get the points out of this book, right? Because when I'm thinking about it, Black people do this. Black people always, especially Black boys, always in procrastination mode, because we do not believe in ourselves. We're defeated, right? Where many of us are buck broken. You know what I mean? So
you're absolutely right.
But what we don't understand is that we're going through it together. So if you're going through it by yourself, you're going to feel the effects more. But if you realize, wait a second, this person going through this person, why don't I just work with these people? Why don't I just work with them? Why don't I humble myself? Why don't I ask the elders, respect my elders? You know what I mean? Respect my mother, respect my father, these type of things. The things that I mentioned in the Quran. You know what I'm saying? Right? So that we can learn from this experience and climb out of it. There's no shortage of work that for us to do. And none of us should be spending hours and hours and hours on social media. Not a single one of us. Not a one.
You're right.
None of us have a excuse. Yeah.
It's no, subhanAllah, you're exactly, because sometimes it can become overwhelming, right? And you're like, you're thinking about all the change that needs to happen within yourself, within your family, thinking about you know, how you can better support your children and your community. And you're right, subhanallah, it's you don't have the time, right? You don't have the time. You could be, like I said, you know, learning Arabic, learning Quran, figuring out how to implement the Sunnah, putting systems in place, reading books. Um, yeah, subhanallah. It's and I think that's, like you said, the therapy piece. For many people, it's a fear. I don't. For me, anyways, it's like there's a fear. It's like, you know, is this something is it possible, right? And of course, you know, you're Muslim. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, anything is possible. But it's getting over yourself and your own mental blocks to be able to then support the second generation. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. We have to get over ourselves. Yes, we've been through all of this, but that should humble you, not make you more entitled. Right? You know what I mean? After taking this beat down for 400 plus years, you should be humble by now. You know what I mean? You should know, especially Black men, we should know when it's time to be threatening, when it's time to be non-threatening. You get me? Sometimes that non-threatening Negro is the biggest threat to the dominant society. As a matter of fact, that's what it is most of the time. Okay? That's what it is most of the time. Right? The one who is educated, the one who is dressed sharply, you know, the one who is clean, you know, and smells good. These are the ones who are the biggest threats to the dominant society. Who really afraid of, you know, these 14-year-old kids who are, you know, drill rappers and stuff, run around the streets with guns, you know, and terrorizing their neighborhoods? Who's really afraid of those people except for other Black people? They ain't out terrorizing Chinese neighborhoods, Jewish neighborhoods, white neighborhoods. They're terrorizing us. Nobody afraid of that. That is a plant. That is a part of the psychological warfare against Black men to make you think like that, like this is masculinity. So really, the key for us is to control our minds. Control our minds and control the way that we act. Because the power always comes from the ground up. If you're not controlling if you can't control yourself, how are you going to control your family? And if you can't control your family, how are you going to control the community? How are you going to do that? Leadership comes from the men, correct? Yes or no? Leadership comes from the men, right? If a man can't control himself, is he going to control his family? And if he can't control his family, is he going to be a leader in the community? He can't even lead his own mind. He can't even control his mouth. He can't control the amount of time he spends on social media. He can't control it. Which brings me to another point to this book, right? The one I want to talk about is very, very, very important, especially this is a problem, a massive problem with Black boys and Black men. And that is asking for help. And the opposite is true too. Don't vilify a brother if he asks for help. Okay, you're not alone. You should not be afraid to ask for help. And if a brother asks you for help, don't vilify him. Try to help him, right? Try to help him. With us, Black men, the majority of our problems stem because of economics. Because we are completely and utterly locked out of participating in economically. But what we don't understand is the path out of that is through education. This is why I keep saying for black boys, especially young black boys, especially Muslim black boys, get a trade. Get a trade. You will never regret it in your life. And trades are the actual economic drivers for any society. It's literally being a builder. It taps into your masculinity and your creativity. There are certain industries right now that are in grave danger of collapsing, okay, in the West. Education is in grave danger of collapsing. Grave danger. It's not like a joke. It's a very serious thing. Farming is in grave danger of collapsing. Very, very grave danger, okay? Nobody wants to be a farmer anymore. All the foreigners that came here from these other countries and whatnot, they didn't come here to own no farms. No problem. No problem. They didn't come here to own no farms. They came here to become doctors and lawyers and stuff. The monetary systems of the world are in grave danger of collapsing. The medical systems throughout the earth are in grave danger of collapsing. All of this. It's not a joke. It's a serious time that we're living in. Which means that if you can build something or if you can grow something, you will be in incredibly high demand. I was telling my kids that their generation, all they have to do is outwork the kids in their generation. That's all they have to do, outwork these kids. Because Western-born kids are entitled. And the Eastern-born kids, they're coming here, going through the educational processes in order to achieve their goals. Very hardworking. These Easterners, very, very hardworking, okay? So your competition are the Easterners, not the Westerners. White Westerners will attach themselves to the generational wealth that they built through the centuries. They will try to control everything through nepotism. But this generation coming up is not smart enough to hold on to what was stolen from the rest of the world. So all you have to do is outwork them. That's all you have to do. But as I was mentioning before, what does it have to do with asking for help? Black men have a big problem. Black men have a big problem with asking for help when it comes to their health, okay, especially their health. And they are the least likely to see doctors out of all people groups for health issues. Okay? They are least likely to ask for help when it comes to legal stuff. And they are the least likely to ask for help when it comes to finances. Black men. And we have to train our boys to put themselves in a position where they're actually able to be the ones who are being asked for help and not being the ones who are asking for help. In my humble opinion, the quickest and best way to do that for Black boys is through trades. You'll make the same money as somebody getting a university degree, and you'll probably end up owning a business. And you don't have to take on debt to get a trade. And you're getting paid to work on a job. But you have to see it like an education. You have to see it like that. You got to consider it like an education, which means you have to follow and listen and learn and be quiet and not getting your feelings, because if you get a trade, you are bound to face some outrageous racism. Outrageous racism, like blatant racism. And the last point I want to bring out from this book on F Yourself, right, is it's not about you, okay? This is a big problem with Black men. And now we have, because the sister was mentioning about red pill, and there's this new phenomenon now in the Black community where men who, Black men particularly, who wouldn't get a woman, they're not the type of men that women desire because they don't do much. And if you don't do much, very minimum, you can at least work out. They don't even want to do that. But they have the most amount of work and vitriol against Black women. Because these men can't get any woman. It doesn't make a difference, Black, white, whatever. But they're used to, but now they have this thing where it's easy for them to attack Black women. And they're not helping or solving or fixing anything. It's not in the spirit of trying to solve a very big problem in the Black community, which is the single motherhood, which is, Black women being pretty much conditioned as a tool for white supremacy, sending the fathers of their children to family court and things of this nature, stripping the entire Black community of generational wealth through these actions. It's not in that spirit. It's not in that spirit. It's in the spirit of just trying to assault Black women. So imagine these men now, right? They think it's about them. You see what I'm saying? These men who haven't even accomplished anything, they are incredibly self-centered. And this is really an effeminate trait, to be honest. Because it's in a woman's nature to want to look out for herself first, right? Because she's a nurturer, right? So by nature, she wants to look out for herself and her children, right? But these traits is not befitting, especially Muslim men, to have these types of traits. It's ridiculous, actually, right? If you're going to try to help if you want to try to help the Black community, do it in the spirit of helping the Black community, not trying to beat down and pummel Black women into oblivion. Right? I don't believe in that. I'm sorry, I just don't. I don't. All the things that I put out about Black women, it was not in the spirit of beating them down. I was brought out facts and where to get these facts. I basically cited everything that I brought out. I talked about the obesity rate in Black women, 80%. That's a big problem. Nobody can tell me that's not a problem. I brought out how Lizzo is pushing this body positivity. That's incredibly treacherous, outrageously treacherous. But you'll never find me putting out pictures of monkeys and saying this is a Black woman or something like that. It's crazy. What is that? And you're calling yourself a Muslim on top of that? That's crazy. But because you think the world revolves around you, you're able to do that and not even feel shy or shame about it. So these are some verses of the Quran that I thought about when I had finished listening to this book, okay, and its relation to Black men, right? Because Black men have a defeatist mentality. We can't do this. We can't do that. We can't. No, there's no way we can do this. And we can't. Always we can't. Always we can't. When Allah says, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, after the hardship comes the ease. After every difficulty, there is relief. That's Allah saying that. That's Allah saying that. He never said anything about can't. Even can't shouldn't be in your vocabulary if you're a Muslim. The only time can't should come out your mouth is when it comes to halal and haram. That's it. I can't drink alcohol. It's haram. That's it. I can't eat pork. It's haram. Why can't we get our own land? Why can't we build our own farms? Why can't we build our own militias to protect ourselves? Why can't we raise our girls not to be Tatianas and baby mamas? Why can't we raise our boys not to be Pookies and Railways? We can do it. Are you willing to do the work that is required to do it? That's the real question. Allah says in the Quran, and indeed, we shall test you with something of fear, hunger, loss of wealth, lives, and fruits, but give glad tidings to the sabirin, the patient ones. Have we not been tested with fear? Black men, have we not been tested with fear? Have we not been tested with a hunger? Every Black community, if you're living in a Black community, you are living in what is known as a food desert. Where you don't have any food growing for yourselves, nor can you sustain yourselves, but rather food is being shipped to you by your enemy. So you eat the food that your enemies give you, and if they want to turn off the supply chain, which you call nourishment in your communities, and starve you, they can do it. Many of us have seen an empty fridge in our lifetimes. Many of us. And a lot of the things that you call food isn't even food. Those things which you call food are meant to affect your psychology and your health. Who remembers Tang? Who remembers Tang? They still have Tang? We used to think that crap was juice. It wasn't juice. It was just cheap. Those things are neurotoxins. We out there drinking that crap. Sodas. The pop is cheaper than the water. The pop is cheaper than the water. You're basically drinking sugar. Kool-Aid, exactly, Kool-Aid. This is the stuff they're feeding you. Because you don't grow your own food. Then when the foreigners come, they always send some Yemeni or some South Asian or whatnot with their convenience stores to sell you some old meat and some old vegetables and stuff. Loose cigarettes and alcohol in the black communities. Have we not been tested with our lives? Have we not been tested with our lives? You walk out as a black person, you're being tested with your life. Just being black. Especially a black man. You don't have to commit a crime. Even some of your large social media influencers are okay with Black Death. Allah says in the Quran, and whoever fears Allah and keeps his duty to him, he will make a way out for him to get out from every difficulty. And he will provide from him from sources he could never imagine. Here is Allah. He's telling you what he can, and not that he can, he will do it. Not that he can, Allah will do it. Does Allah break his promises? So why are you out here saying that you can't? We have to decide which is more important to us with regards to our time, with regards to our families. If we don't have the abilities to do it for ourselves, the least we can transfer the opportunities to our children, correct? Bare minimum, we can do that so that our children can be better than we are. But the mentality, this I can't mentality, it has to stop. It has to change, especially in black men. It must change and it must end. Anyway, we've been going for almost an hour and a half. Inshallah, I will close it now, unless anybody wants to hop on this live. But please like and subscribe and share. And please hit me up on Patreon. And tomorrow, we're going live again, inshallah. Remember, on this channel, we are focusing on black people, right? Black Muslims in particular, but black people in general. And this channel is for you, guys, right? It's been a long time coming. So topics like this, which I don't think I've ever seen this particular topic addressing black boys and black men specifically in a very specific, pointed manner with trying to change the mentality of black men using actual scholastic works and books and stats. I don't think this has ever been done before. So if you like what you have saw. Support the channel. Support the channel on Patreon. Support the channel on PayPal. Support the channel on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share. And Jazakallah khair for everybody who participated. I want to say Jazakallah khair to Fatima. I know you had some technical difficulties there, but I'd like to thank you for joining us, in the conversation. And we'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Subhanahu wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are the Muslim wing of the black grassroots. Unapologetic, strong, uncompromising voices that have been in the faces of the enemy and those who tap dance for them. The Feachaz is proud to present the archives exclusively on Patreon.